Coming at you from Tokyo, Japan, my name is Dave and this is my 98 Toyota Altezza. I can't tell you how long I spent on this, but I have got it all to fit. If I want to filter on these when I drive with Ryan, I'm gonna have to make something or jerry-rig something. You can't just put a plate behind the trumpet that comes out for the filter because this is in the way and the TPS is in the way at the back and, well, the water lines again. These sit much further back than the 20 valve ITBs do, just because you guys thought I wouldn't have one. Here it is in inches. I mean, there's a couple of different ways to do this. You could mount a backing plate to the back here like Paul Corolla did, but that limits access to the mounting bolts to 0. If you drill the holes to access the bolts and don't have the whole area sectioned off like Paul does, then dust will enter through the holes. This method, while it works, it just isn't for me. Because the velocity stacks all touch each other, there's no way to get a regular sponge filter in there, and honestly I wouldn't recommend doing that anyway because they often get sucked into the engine. The best option I have is to make a backing plate that goes along, stops before this thing, and then comes up this way, and then the pipe across can mount on there. It's a big job. A company called Genvi sell this, but it needs modifying straight out of the box to fit. It's in the UK and I just don't have any time left. I just don't think I'm ever going to be able to get it in there. So now I'm thinking about building a plenum out of fiberglass. I've got this thing. Right? I bought this because I thought it might fit before I even started all of this. But, I mean, you can see that that's way too small. But something like that with this on the end, so I'm thinking about making something like this that'll just go on. Then I can build off of this, or I can build something that fits into this. I got a piece of MDF here. I got my circular saw here. We'll call it 11 centimeters. 352. Going freehand, brah. How straight is she? A blind man would be happy to say it's not that bad. It's not that good either. That fits in there, no problem. Now I don't want square edges, I want round edges. Why did you use that radius? Because it was there. Because I didn't have to go looking for another one. And it was good enough. Right, now how are you going to cut those out? Jigsaw? Hey Dave, how do you know how to do this? I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just having a go. This works better if you fold it down. Okay, we can sand that up, clean it up, make it look nice, but that is going to be our base plate. Drives me nuts. They go to all the trouble of manufacturing this, and then they don't make it the right size. The paper doesn't fit properly. You have to trim a bit off it. Absolutely infuriating. This only needs to be rough. I'm using 60 grit here. How do you feel about that? I need the wall at the bottom to be 140 and I want the wall at the top to be 160. And the reason for that is that I will eventually go longer trumpets. I don't think these are going to be long enough. I've seen dyno results from this and I believe that a longer velocity stack will give you more mid-range power. We've got a back plate and we've got a front plate. It's quite a lot bigger, isn't it? I've got a spacer set up on here and my trumpets where I think they're going to go. So I'm just trying to tape up the edges to give me something to lay fiberglass onto. For a set of ITBs, I think this is a bit much. Turbo. No, don't turbo it. Put ITBs on it. What a silly idea. Turbo makes more power for less effort. Seriously, buy a bolt-on turbo kit. Yep, it's just a whole lot of this. I've had it in the car sitting there and I've discovered that it's not quite what I want. I want as much air in here as possible. This and this are parallel, whereas it would actually work better if this was on an angle. That's going to complicate things because then you can't guarantee that you'll be able to get the velocity stacks out. I have to have some kind of elbow coming out of here for the filter to actually connect to. If they just made a filter for this, then I wouldn't have to do any of this shit. But they don't. I mean, the beams comes in an Altezza. Why would you make a filter that fits that? Of course you don't make a filter for the car that it actually comes in. You make a filter for some car that you transplant it into. That makes sense, doesn't it? It makes sense to some people. Does not make sense to me. Okay, I figured out that the angle that I want's roughly 30 degrees using one of these guys. So I cut out 3 of these guys. I'm going to try and use super glue first because I don't want to wait. What's the worst that can happen? It just doesn't do anything. Can I spray some of this in here? Okay, we're not trying to play basketball with it. We'll be fine. Let's put some glue on here. Yeah, this smells bad. Ted, yeah, don't come near this. Yeah, yuck, right? He didn't like that. I'm not surprised. He gave it a good whiff. Okay, that's strong enough to pick up. I don't know if it's going to clear the bonnet, but it clears everything else. Back to the drawing board. I've got it stuck there with double-sided tape. I've got it cut down to basically as small as I can make it. If I put 100mm velocity stacks on, it comes up to this line here, which means I can't lower the roof any more than that. But that's really high. It's just going to be a matter of whether I can actually access this window here to be able to get the trumpets in and out. It's going to suck to get past this. This might be a really terrible idea. Anyway, let's see if the bonnet closes. It goes up into the cutout area up in there, so it will actually fit. But just because it clears, that doesn't mean this is a good idea. What about if I'm thinking about it all wrong? What if the window isn't the front? What if the window's this top? This whole top section comes off. And we're here. I didn't film any of this because I was just getting it done. I stretched tape across all of it to get the shape that I wanted. Coated everything in Vaseline so that the fiberglass would hopefully let go, and then I put fiberglass on it. The complicated thing is trying to design it. The fact that this dips in like that is probably going to make it difficult for the wood to come out. We'll find out when I try to pull it apart whether it's actually possible. It might be a good idea to actually remove it once it's dry with one coat. That way if it won't come off, it'll snap and I can repair the break off the mold. Whereas if I make it super strong, it won't break and it just won't come off. I'll be After I removed it from the mold, the trumpets wouldn't fit in it. So I used some other techniques to get it to be like that. I actually bolted these on. Because this is done out of fiberglass, I could see through it, so marking the holes was relatively easy. Basically what I did is I found this tube stuff and I just wrapped it in tape and packed it around the trumpets and then glassed around the foam. I don't even know if that's going to fit in the car. I know what you're thinking. Hey Dave, why don't you just run no filter? If I run no filter, there'll be a 1,000-year sandstorm. I've just brought this out just for shits and giggles, and now I'm worried because what's wild is that radius is exactly the same. I was confident that this wouldn't fit. The internal area of the pipe across is pretty much spot on to the same size as these ITBs. So if you misalign this a little bit and I get taller throttle bodies, it won't actually fit in. This might be so crazy that it just happens to work. Like, the fit is ridiculous. What I'm thinking is just cut this out and actually mold the fiberglass onto this metal panel. But I don't know if the fiberglass will stick to it. It might delaminate later on though. I can't wrap it because the filter goes right to the outside. It has to just bond to the edge. It's just a matter of whether it fits in the car like that. And I just have a feeling that it's not going to. This tab will hit the water lines, or maybe the whole side will hit the water lines. It just can't be this easy. Nothing to this point has been. Until I see it, I refuse to believe this is going to work. I do really want to use this filter because it was expensive, and I mean, I have history now with this filter. It's been a thorn in my side since day one. I'd like to keep it if I can, just because of my relationship with it. How many years am I going to be able to use that filter though? Maybe for the life of the car at this point. Another 6 months. Oh, off to bed.